Welcome to the Trash Cats Trash Cast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're depressed and upset and talking about art.
Are we?
I mean, I am.
I'm okay. I don't feel depressed.
I'm sorry for putting that on you. That was rude of me.
No, that's the normal status quo, right? But I don't feel terrible. And this, we've been heavy in the politics meta, so we thought this would be a good Art Boys podcast.
classic trash cast.
Trying to switch the vibe up. How was your week? Why are you so fucking mentally drained?
It's my week's been all right. Mostly. I think it's me. It's me doing most of the what's the word? Existential thoughts and kind of pulling myself into a sort of a spiral, if you will. It's the spiral sounds fun. It seems like a good time, like spiral slides and staircases. You don't think about it until you're, getting closer and closer to the bottom of that deep, dark well that you start to realize, man,
fuck this shit.
I should look up for some light, maybe. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work to get up out of this one.
That's well said. I went on a little mini spiral myself yesterday. I did it was like an evening drive, when you're driving and it's right as the sun's going down.
Mm-hmm. And it's right in your eyes.
I was going the other way, fortunately. It wasn't like quite the golden hour where you get the special light, but it's like the sullen hour when you're driving away. That shit's like feeling the world change around you. And it was the first like warm evening with a nice wind in a while.
Yeah.
Dude, so much nostalgia and streetlights and shit. Just like, what a sad life it's been, huh?
Yeah.
What a strange, sad life.
Yeah, what an unfortunate place that we were
set of circumstances.
Placed. Yeah, what an unfortunate set of circumstances that we've been forced to endure without our consent.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool being brought into the world and just dealing with it. And honestly, it's
pretty cool.
It's the hard part is, not thinking about the like, oh yeah, like some people have it, worse off than we do. But
fuck
also,
those losers.
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
right,
but
my life's trash. Okay? If their life's trashier, fuck them. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like, they also, they have their own reason to be upset. It doesn't discredit the reasons I have to be upset. And,
I think they're just whining. I think they're just complaining and whining.
They just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Bootstraps. Yeah. Get with the fucking program.
Stop buying avocado toast.
All right. Any honorable mentions since we're Art Boys?
There's nothing of honor that's happened in my life in the last week. 2 weeks.
We are kind of regressing. Back into honor culture,
Yeah, we truly are.
We're getting there. All right, I got 2 quick ones. I've been a long time fan, and I've read some of his other stuff, but primarily essays. This is the first book of his I've read. I'm finally going through Sam Harris's catalog. I'm on Waking Up, which I think in retrospect will probably be the book of his I like the least.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, it's pretty interesting. It's about kind of what spiritualism is from a secular viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's about meditation kind of stuff, but it's interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. It's given me weird feelings, even though I disagree with fair bits of it. I always super appreciate his writing. And then I finally saw new Nosferatu.
Oh yeah, how was that?
Very violently mid. What a middle of the road, may never think about it twice kind of movie. Honestly,
that's so unfortunate.
It's worth watching. It's interesting. There's a couple cool artsy moments, but there's just like whole portions of the movie that are just like a waste of time. And I think most people that are like not Nosferatu vampiric souls, right? They'll probably love it. Like it is like moderately well done.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it does not capture the essence of the original Nosferatu, which is what I wanted. Okay, and I don't expect other people to want that, but I think you just can't beat classic Nosferatu. So it's whatever. It's a fun, like, chill movie or date night movie, but it's whatever.
I feel like there's, with something like that, where it's like, it's maybe not like popular so much, but it's famous. Like it's very like it's renowned. Infamous. Like most people know about Nosferatu. Even if they haven't seen it, they're aware of it. So to reboot something like that, to remake, or, you know, like I think remake even would probably be a strong word. Like something like that, it's lightning in a bottle. You can't really remake it. You can try to capture its energy. You can try to, you know, show homage to it. I mean, does it at least feel like it tried to do that, where it was like,
yeah, and I'll if it wasn't called Nosferatu, I would probably think it's like the best Dracula movie in a while. But it's just not Nosferatu, and I don't like it pretending to be. I will say the Romanian sculptures of hyenas are excellent, and they do some cool stuff, but it just, they made it like too demonic, where like there's a bunch of like exorcist-y scenes where like the demon and like seizing out type of shit, and I just fucking hate. That is not vampiric. That is not Nosferatu. It's supposed to be a tragedy and I don't know. You know what I mean.
It's got Willem Dafoe in it.
Yeah, and he's good. He's good in it.
I mean, he's never.
Did you see The Lighthouse?
Yes.
I think we talked. Yeah, it was pretty good. Any other art stuff since we're art boys, or should we get into it?
No, I've fallen away from playing guitar and drawing things again. But
we should.
I did think about my. We should. I was thinking about my guitar earlier today, and I just didn't do it. So I'm working on it.
Just think of how sad those strings are. Since you
they're fucking pissed. So I got it all cleaned and put new strings on it last year, and then I was like, "Oh, this is the year," and then I never touched it again.
Give that thing.
This year, I was like, I dusted it off, and you know,
just give it a twang. See what happens.
Tuned it up, and you know, of course, my fingers were
your guitar. What the fuck?
And of course, my fingers were like ripped apart like immediately because I wasn't used to it anymore, and I was like, all right, well. I did put in some work on it, but...
Have you watched... Because our algorithms are probably similarly finely tuned. Did you watch the video recently about the most sold piano concert?
No, but I have been watching a lot of drain cleaning videos.
That's terrible. This concert, it's like a famous jazz musician playing abroad... because I forget where, and he shows up to the venue, and the piano is broken. And there's not enough time to fix it, and he's, like, pissed, and he gets, like, coerced to go on a stage anyway, and it's like an hour and a half of him learning and embracing and, like, falling in love with this piano and giving, like, a incredible performance, and it's the most sold, and it's not like jazz, but it's like, you know, classical-ish with jazz, but it's the most sold piano album of all time. And it's pretty cool. I listened to it recently. It's a pretty interesting musical journey, you know?
Nice.
I like stuff that has movements like that where you're going on a little adventure.
Yeah.
But with all that in mind, we have an article to go through today from scipost.org. It's a psychology study that reveals a fascinating fact about artwork. What do you think we're going to learn?
I assume when you sent me the article and I hadn't read any of it yet, the first thought was like, what? This reads like a BuzzFeed thing of like, you'll never guess what we found out about or we found hidden in this
side post.
Yeah, it's like, all right, but it's I don't know what more do we really need to know about artwork?
Well, I will say this: the conclusion is something I already, and I think a lot of people like instinctually kind of know or feel about art, but the study that validates this is pretty interesting. It's got some unique takeaways that, things that you feel like is a fact or a truth about art, but it's kind of interesting when it's validated. So this article is from Eric W. Dolan from scipost.org. Is there a title?
That's the title is Psychology Study Reveals a Fascinating Fact About Artwork.
That is a terrible title name.
Yeah, that's it.
People are willing to engage with negative content when it's presented as art rather than a straightforward photograph, according to new research published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The researchers discovered that artwork depicting distressing scenes held viewers' attention for longer periods and were often chosen over similar non-art images. This work suggests that art can serve as a powerful tool for communicating difficult or unpleasant information in a way that makes it more accessible.
Throughout history, artists have explored themes of death, suffering, and violence. Think of memento mori artworks that remind of...
It's amore.
Throughout history, artists have explored themes of death, suffering, and violence. Think of memento mori artworks that remind us of our mortality, or powerful paintings like Caravaggio's Medusa and Frida Kahlo's unflinching self-portraits depicting chronic pain. These works, though potentially disturbing, captivate audience and have become iconic.
I don't like that mean fruit lady, Kahlo.
The mean fruit lady?
She just looks so mean. I don't know. A team of researchers set out to understand this phenomenon, specifically focusing on whether art makes us more willing to engage with negative content. They wanted to test if people show a stronger interest in seeing negative situations depicted in paintings compared to similar situations shown in photographs. Beyond simply measuring interest, the researchers also wanted to understand the psychological reasons behind the potential preference for art, exploring what motivates us to engage with negative content in different forms.
Quote, I'm curious about why people engage with negative content, from true crime to accident videos. Research on morbid curiosity suggests that negative information serves important functions. It helps us gain knowledge, understand emotions, and connect with others, primarily because it is grounded in reality and relevant to real life, said study author Jagmer Osbe, a PhD candidate at the University of Amsterdam.
Quote, this creates an interesting challenge for art, which often abstracts reality rather than depicting it directly. If real-world content is inherently more informative and socially relevant, why does art hold such a dominant role in portraying negative themes?
Quote, while many assume it's intuitive that people would prefer engaging with negative content through art, I question whether this was truly the case from a functional perspective. This led me to investigate whether, when given the choice, people actually prefer engaging with negative content, specifically moral transgressions involving harm and violence through art or non-art, and why.
Yeah, like if you think of like how many dark artists, like the gothy art or like violent-y art or like metal art, like how many people like can look at brutal imagery, you know, all day, every day. But if they saw photographs of it all, they would be disturbed or off-put or uninterested. Like the majority of people, not all for sure. But there's something, the visceralness or the knowing of it being real, I think is too much sometimes. But through someone else's lens, it becomes more interesting or stomachable or something. Like I at one point I was very much in a gore art direction, and there are a handful of artists that I like that have stayed in that vein. And although I truly do like some of it, I've found it to be incredibly lazy.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where it's like the most brutal shit, like when your stuff is just like photos of other people's like murder scenes and stuff, and it's what you do every single piece. It's just I'm not getting
there's something
much out of that.
There's something I feel with that of like using it is one thing, but like
abusing it is another.
Consistently, like the reaction you're getting from your work is largely based on the shock of this content.
Yeah.
So like if you really,
it's one note.
You kind of really got to be doing something like really creative with it, or something kind of new or unique with it that makes it more than the sum of its parts. That, that's I'm sure is, capable to do on a regular basis. It's just, I'm sure it's difficult.
Yeah. The researchers conducted a series of 5 online experiments. They started by selecting 10 pairs of images. Each pair consisted of a painting and a photograph depicting the same negative situation involving a moral violation, things like violence or injustice. For example, one pair might show a painting and a photograph of people fighting. They also created a set of image pairs showing positive moral actions, like caring for others, for use in one of their studies.
The researchers selected paintings by well-known artists and then identified photographs depicting similar scenes to ensure content comparability. It was important that the photographs were seen as less artistic than the paintings, so they conducted a preliminary study to confirm this. They ensured that both the paintings and photographs in each pair were seen as equally representative of the moral content they were meant to portray. In the experiments, the paintings were presented as, quote, a painting selected to be displayed in an art gallery, while the photographs were described as a photo selected to illustrate a news article.
The participants were recruited online through a platform called Prolific. All participants were native English speakers, had a high rating for completing studies reliably, and had not yet taken part in a similar study before. Across the 5 experiments, over 1,000 people participated.
In the first experiment, 200 participants were divided in 2 groups. One group was told they would be looking at descriptions of paintings, and the other group was told they would be looking at descriptions of photographs. For each description, participants were asked if they wanted to see the image. The descriptions covered both the positive and negative situations. The researchers measured whether people chose to see the images and how long they looked at them if they chose yes.
The second experiment involved 119 participants. This time, for each negative situation, participants were given a choice. Did they want to see the painting or the photograph? Again, the researchers tracked which type of image people chose and how long they looked at it.
In the third set of experiments, studies 3A and 3B, participants were shown both paintings and photographs of negative situations. In one version, 3A, everyone saw both types of images. In another version, 3B, some participants only saw paintings and others only saw photographs. After viewing each image, participants rated their experience. They answered questions about their emotional responses like distress, compassion, and feeling moved. They also rated how aesthetically pleasing and thought-provoking they found the image, and whether it gave them a realistic or original perspective, among other things. The researchers still measured how long participants spent looking at each image.
Do you feel more drawn to, in quotes, positive or negative art, you think?
I think...
Honestly, I hate that question already, because what is positive or negative, right?
Right. I mean, I feel like in the context of this, where it's like, you know, like atrocities, or like, you know, people are hurt, or, you know, accidents, stuff like that, like, you know, accident videos or whatever, versus, you know, good news things, the fucking puppy bowl, and, you know, flowers and pretty things. It's like, it's not so much that I have a preference of the content. I think it's how the content is presented.
Feels.
And yeah, there's definitely a thing of like, I can find an image of like, you know, sunshine and flowers and things like that. Very, very pretty, but it's got more to do with the, I look more like composition and stuff like that. So like, that's what more would catch my eye, or like the media that's used to make it, or, you know, things like that, or, you know, what different tones you see. I don't know. I feel like with that, typically darker, more negative things are usually portrayed in the aesthetic that I usually like.
Gravitate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I gravitate towards darker aesthetic, but you could have a beautiful like garden flower scene in the sunlight, and it's an old woman watering the flowers, and then in the background you can like tell the door was left open, and they forgot to take their meds that day, and they're you know, like they're in the wrong backyard watering the wrong flower.
Man.
Or you could have like a police brutality, that the military's, you know, beating the shit out of this, you know, young woman, and the painting's only beautiful because it's like the look of determination, or like resiliency in their, you know, like they're,
yeah,
the content. I agree that I, you know, generally gravitate towards like more negative, anti-life aesthetic, but all that matters is the feeling. And I've ended up spending a large portion of my art trying to make pretty things too. And like, good art is what's beautiful to you, and like what you want to see, what fills the feeling you feel like you need, but you haven't known you needed it yet, type of thing.
Yeah. I find that all the time with music, especially when I'm depressed. It's like, I know, like, it's so hard for me to like want to put on music that's gonna be helpful to me, or anything, or music at all, when I'm depressed. Like, yeah. I'll drive, you know, I'll raw dog a 30-minute drive with no music or podcast sometimes.
Dead silence.
Yeah. just my own thoughts rambling through my head. But I often feel like when I put on something that's a lot more, it's not maybe the thing that I thought I needed, but it's, you know, I'm not putting on music to match my mood. I'm putting on music to, you know, bring my mood, to elevate my mood,
or alter
or define my mood, I guess.
Yeah,
I find that it works pretty well for me.
Yeah, like I think I would have been a very difficult participant in these studies, because while we may all have like personal preferences of what we gravitate towards, I can appreciate something positive if it's beautiful just the same as I can if it's negative and beautiful, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, it's the blues. It's the, I was just going to say, part of that is like, I feel like the blues is supposed to be like, oh, it's music you make when you're sad, or it's like, that's usually the
cliche,
the meme, or the story of it. Yeah. But it's like, it's usually such groovy and kind of like fun. It's good party music. It's good, you know, like just kind of very chill. It's not too crazy. It's not over the top. It's just a good, calm,
or there's
setting stone.
There's like different facets to it. Like it often is that, but it often could be the saddest thing ever, you know? It's, yeah.
It's like the words can tell a sad story, but like the music can still like
be a bop,
move you in a happier way. Yeah. Good old muddy waters.
The final experiment, Study 4, had 3 parts and involved 191 participants. First, participants presented with descriptions of negative situations paired with either a painting or a photograph label, and they chose whether or not they wanted to see the image, but they didn't see it yet. Second, before seeing any images, they were asked to rate how they expected viewing each image, painting or photograph, would affect them in terms of various motivations, such as providing a realistic perspective or being emotionally costly. Finally, in the third part, they were shown the images they had chosen to see earlier. Researchers again tracked viewing time and also asked participants if the images were more or less interesting than they had expected. This totally gets at that thing of some of we've talked about it a lot, but my favorite music, it has small viewing time currently because it hurts me. The things I want might not always be what I need, or my favorite art might not be something I've looked at long. There are emotional sacrifices you make for certain content, and that part of the equation is disconnected from its beauty. Where tracking the viewing time, while I'm not saying that should be completely discounted, to me that wouldn't be a definitive factor about the art. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it is an interesting statistic, and I'm glad that they are keeping track of it, because I think it may not be something to rely on heavily, but I think it's definitely something interesting to find through the end of it. I think also asking them if they were, the images were more or less interesting than what they had expected, the image they made in their mind when reading descriptions. I think that's pretty interesting. So I think there's so much of the stuff that you hear it and you we're able to craft in our mind things that are, sometimes way crazier than reality.
And I think that goes back to, what is the expectation of art? The expectation of what emotional role a piece of art will fill or won't fill largely affects your experiencing it.
Yeah.
I also, this kind of goes without saying, but to be, all cards on the table, we're obviously approaching this from an artistic perspective. Scientifically, it sounds like they're doing 4 different versions of this study, and I would assume their conclusions from all of them kind of go into their final conclusion, but I have no comment on the factual scientific validity of this. I just think it's an interesting lens to understand art, or ourselves a bit. But I have no idea if this is a laughable study or if this was considered very solid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's definitely something interesting. I mean, there's not a ton of participants. Even 1,000 is that's good, but it's not
a small study still.
Yeah, it's 1,000 also broken down between 4 different studies.
Okay, we only base our scientific evidence off of meta studies. Okay, this is measly numbers. What is the Q factor in this thing, huh?
The participants were recruited through all through the same platform. They apparently had all been they had high rating for completing studies reliably. So they're all people who have done
nerds,
participated in studies like this before.
Oh, they're broke and they needed money to be in a study.
Yeah, exactly.
How reliable?
A bunch of broke people.
How reliable could their art preferences be? I mean, we're joking, but I have no idea how good or not the study is. But I do think there are lots of takeaways about how we view art and what it views in us.
I mean, they definitely seem like they're gathering a lot of kind of spread information, which is good. I think that's for something that they're they're dipping their toes into the water of like a new thing, spreading it out. Like they're casting a wide net to see like what's coming back and like what kind of, if we see any patterns, what do we follow up on? I think that's actually probably a smart way. I'm not, I don't do this for a living, but yeah.
It seems like a fair approach. I don't know if there's any real reason to study this. As a person that loves art.
Yeah, also 100%.
Like, I don't know if I would fund a lot of studies, but I don't know if I would ever choose to fund a study about what our art preferences reveal.
Mm-hmm.
While I'm glad somebody does or is, I feel like there's something so subjective and like what beauty means to us that I don't feel the need to like fully pound out that formula, like
I kind of joked about it earlier, but I think there is something to be said about you can find some of this information already in how successful, propaganda, like posters and, documents, whatever, like things like that have been made. And like how successful they were, how effective they were.
If it bleeds,
that doesn't
leads,
necessarily, right? What was that?
If it bleeds, it leads, right? Like that.
Yeah.
There's an element of like, we're just drawn to negativity.
Yeah.
In and of itself
it's not answering the same question that they're asking, I think.
Right.
But I think they're tuning that dial into, which media makes the best for propaganda.
That's a takeaway.
Which of these is more is whether it's more moving, but it's easier to digest.
Could your art impact people this way more as a painting or a photograph? Can you get people to...
Which AI filter do you have to put on it?
Yeah, what? Oh, God. Octane render. I need a DSLR
now radial blur.
filter.
Radial blur.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
After analyzing the data from all 5 experiments, the researchers found a clear pattern. People showed a stronger preference for engaging with negative content when it is presented as art. Participants were more likely to choose to view paintings depicting negative situations compared to photographs of similar situations. Interestingly, this preference for art was not seen when the content was positive.
In the second study, when participants were directly asked to choose between a painting and a photograph of the same negative event, they chose the painting more often than the photograph. While the fourth study did not replicate the choice preference, the researchers believe this was due to a change in the experimental design that removed the immediate feedback of viewing an image after choosing it. So when there's consequences, people pick differently sometimes.
Yeah. Across all 5 studies, a consistent finding emerged. People spent more time looking at artworks depicting negative content than at photographs of similar content. This was true whether participants chose to see the images or were shown them automatically.
Quote, "Our study provides empirical evidence that people are more likely to engage with negative content when it is presented through art rather than matched control photographs." Osbey told SciPost, quote, "Participants not only chose to engage with this content more frequently, but also spent more time with it. The content specifically involved scenes of violence and harm, with participants making engagement choices based on identical descriptions across art and non-art formats. For example, police violently restrain a woman at a gathering, and a young boy is forced to work in a factory, and guerrilla soldiers attack civilians in a village."
Quote, "These scenarios reflect real-world social issues like child labor, war, and police violence. The fact that participants engage with these descriptions more often and for longer suggests that art may be a powerful tool for sustaining attention on critical yet emotionally challenging issues that people might otherwise avoid." This has important implications for artists, educators, journalists, and activists who seek to communicate difficult topics and foster public awareness and action.
To understand why people preferred art for negative content, the researchers examined the ratings from study 3A and 3B. They discovered that participants consistently rated the artworks as more aesthetically pleasing than the photographs. Furthermore, viewing negative content in art form was seen as less emotionally draining or costly compared to viewing it in photographs. Artwork also provided a less realistic perspective than the photographs. However, there were no significant differences in how thought-provoking, original, or moving the art and non-art images were perceived to be. That's pretty interesting. No significant differences in how thought-provoking. If I was a photographer, this article would drive me up the wall. There's a reason why. There's a reason why photographerstoday.com didn't post this article.
Yeah, true.
They did like no preference that photography is also an art. This whole article, it's like
I didn't even think about that, but you're fully right.
It's like just a slander piece at photographers. Like I feel like they should have they just needed like one sentence to be like, well, what is it? Fine arts versus digital, or something, or yeah. They really just threw photography under the bus. This whole article.
Look at you advocating for a preface,
bro. We gotta. Somebody's got to protect these photographers out here. It's the laziest artist among us, but
we can't hurt them. They're sensitive. In study 4, when examining motivations, researchers found that people were more likely to choose to engage with negative content if they expected it to be thought-provoking, aesthetically pleasing, and offer an original perspective, regardless of whether it was art or a photograph. However, the expected emotional cost played a significant role in people's decisions to avoid content, especially when it was presented as a photograph. In other words, people were less deterred by the potential emotional difficulty of engaging with negative content if they believed it was art.
What comes to mind here is think of a fancy art gallery that will have a painting of a sexual assault, but it's a classy painting still.
Yeah,
and it'll can be widely praised, but if it was a photograph, it would not be in that gallery, right? There are things that can show a terrible act or something costly to view, but when it's through fine art, it can be more easily glorified than the reality of what a photograph really shows.
There's there's a sculpture that comes to mind immediately when you say that. It's a Bernini sculpture, The Abduction of Proserpina is the right one. I don't think I pronounced that correctly, but that's based on the spelling. And it's a depiction of, a girl who is seized and taken to the underworld by Pluto. And it's a beautiful, wonderful sculpture. It's the way we saw it in person, and the way the marble looks like flesh, the way it looks like touchable, and the accents around it are just so. There's the 3-headed dog, and the hair is crazy.
I know what sculpture. Yeah.
It looks so lifelike, and it looks so
in form.
Right. Yeah, it's beautiful, but it's of a what would be
brutal scene.
Yeah, a brutal thing, a terrible, scary thing, and it's you can't take your eyes off of it.
Yeah,
it's much easier to look at for sure.
And in a weird way, if we want to push the envelope a bit. It allows you to admire the beautiful parts of ugly things too.
Yeah.
Like, and I also think it speaks to the power of photography. Like, there's, even if the cost is high with capturing the right image with the camera, that has its strengths. Like, I watched a documentary recently about the story of photographs that the photographer had to die to obtain. For instance, there were a lot of them were like war.
Oh yeah.
Were like, because they were caught taking the photo, they were killed, but they managed to smuggle out the film canisters to someone else. Like those type of things, and the power that those images had were sometimes like world altering. They ended or changed the outcomes of a war. Like there's a different power in showing reality than showing the interpretation, the artistic interpretation of reality, and they both have their own unique strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, having that, like, up until the I guess I want to say the perfection of, but like the really refined version of a camera.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to stand there for a few, an hour or whatever the fuck it was. Like, to have that, take one of those in war. To have one of those, like, to have that moment of, like, before that, all of the depictions of history have all been based on, subjective hearsay.
Yeah.
Even if it was someone who was there that's, like, painting something as they remembered seeing it, it's subjective.
Yeah.
And it's not not fully representational and shouldn't be taken as representational of what happened. I mean, we've even talked about, like, based on what you see in this video, how did this, what do you think happened? Like with the creek stabbing thing.
Yeah.
But like in not all the facts come to light based on that either, but it's definitely a more realistic representation than, a painting or if someone had made. I was trying to think of a video that wasn't
a murder scene.
that was art.
These findings suggest that art acts as a kind of buffer when we engage with difficult or negative subjects. The aesthetic qualities of art and the sense that we are in a slightly removed, as if world when experiencing art may reduce the emotional impact of negative content, making it more approachable. This reduced emotional cost, combined with the appeal of aesthetic appreciation and thought-provoking perspectives, makes people more willing to explore negative themes through art than through non-art media. Damn, they hate photography.
They really fucking do.
Damn.
This isn't art.
It's brutal.
Quote, one surprising finding was that the motivations driving engagement with negative content, such as seeking aesthetic value, thought-provoking material, and original perspective, were not exclusive to art, Osbey explained. This is important because while our experimental design, which strictly categorizes art and non-art, strengthens the validity of our findings, such a black and white distinction may not always translate to real-life experiences. He just said it plain as day.
Yeah, damn. This result suggests that engagement is not about whether something is strictly labeled as art, but rather whether it creates expectations of artistic qualities. This means our findings don't imply that news photography should be replaced by paintings, but rather that incorporating artistic elements into various formats could help sustain engagement with difficult topics without requiring every representation to be classified as art.
The researchers acknowledge that their study focused solely on visual art. Brutal. They point out that different forms of art, like literature or music, might create similar or different effects, which is an interesting avenue for future research. Also, all the experiments were conducted online. While this setting mirrors how often we encounter images in our daily digital lives and allowed for controlled experiments, exploring how people engage with negative art in real-world settings like in museums would be valuable.
Yeah, to be honest, I feel like I don't think it invalidates the study, but I think it takes away from this study quite a lot. Like, the weight of this is much less, in my opinion. If this was all done online, that's a very different experience than in person.
It is. I don't
say
disagree.
As a digital artist.
Yeah, I don't disagree with them that it is the setting that people are more likely to see.
I agree.
Negative things on their phone, or like, I think when you're at a museum, you're
in a different mindset.
Yeah, there's a different kind of
selection
cadence.
bias.
Like, yeah, do it at a public library.
Because you're the type of person who went to a museum to want to enjoy art, and you're seeing it in a different way. That this is more widely applicable to the general public, but I also feel like they're in a sense measuring the effects of mediums of art and how they affect us. But it's all through one apparatus of viewing. Seeing these incredible pieces they've referenced in person is incredibly different than viewing them on Instagram.
Yeah.
I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me. I think this is
throw it all in the trash.
I feel like more this would be like the intro study to like what would be a better. Yeah,
I agree. This is like I said, I think in that, if you're looking at it in that perspective, like they cast the wide net and they got some data and they're like, okay, based on these 4 studies, do we see any patterns that we want to, things that we want to cut out, or things that we want to like give more option to, give more freedoms to, or take these freedoms away from it? Like,
it's something.
I think there's more that could be done with this that could potentially get, some kind of useful information, but it's still like, I don't know. I'm still not seeing them. I don't know.
How about
this? It just doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, like if this study completely had the opposite results, it would not affect my perceptions.
Right.
Like, this is interesting because it allows us to explore our thoughts about the ideas, but their findings don't really matter. And I don't know, like I said earlier, how valid or not the study actually is, but I don't know what I'm getting at. I think the point is... What is the point?
What's even the point here?
Looking ahead, the researchers are interested in exploring the long-term effects of this increased engagement with negative content through art. Quote, I'm interested in expanding this research to explore what this increased engagement can offer, Osbe said. If people are willing to engage with difficult yet important social issues through the arts, could this lead to greater awareness, foster empathy, or even inspire action? We've only just begun to explore these possibilities, and I'm excited to see what lies ahead.
I'm excited to discuss the arts beyond beauty and aesthetics. Because we often associate art with these qualities, some may dismiss the idea that art can present real-world issues, either seeing it as outside art's purpose or believing these issues are too important to be represented artistically. I hope this study encourages people to think about the role of art beyond aesthetics.
Man, I'm struggling with these last couple paragraphs. Quote, art is not just about beauty. It is a tool for processing, understanding, and confronting difficult aspects of life, Osbe concluded. Quote, artists use it to communicate real stories, perspectives, and emotions. we engage with it, and through it, connect with culture, history, and identities.
I think that I think what they're implying is like, hey, I mean, it's not they are basically saying like, not propaganda per se, but they're saying like, hey, if you want people to like look at something that's happening and be more mindful of it and to spend more time on it, using art as a representation of what you're wanting them to look at is possibly a more effective way to go. Or
I hate it.
In the way of, in the conversation that we've had before of talking about like the looking at the news and stuff all the time, like all the bad news and shit happening, and like it can wear you down, it can make you tired, and like.
But do you really want paintings for social commentary?
No, I'm trying to picture that, but like this is basically what they're saying of like,
I know,
by using that as a tool, it could keep you from getting fatigue because you're less,
I guess,
burdened by it.
I feel like Osbe is just saying, you stupid art sluts, art can have social messages.
Yeah.
He's like, you guys just adore art for its stupid bimbo beauty and aesthetics. But really, you guys just like apes with hats on. Yeah, you can. There's real important social commentary and history we can message with. I know that's very hyperbolic, and there are like legitimate uses for changing or considering media and through its medium. Mm-hmm. But I also, the amount of like social commentary or political art I enjoy has to be like below 1% of art.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. Art isn't just about beauty and aesthetics, but it should mostly be.
Yeah.
Or like the things that do tell a more direct story, like about a negative thing, but they present a ideology. Mm-hmm. That is an incredibly rare piece of art to do so both effectively and meaningfully.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Like I don't like all the alt artists that make anti-capitalist art. Mm-hmm. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't want to look at a painting about why capitalism is bad. That is not what I want in art. I want something beautiful. There are ways you could have those ideas, but go for it.
I do kind of like the one guy who does the paintings of Banks on fire.
I hate it.
I think it's funny mostly because like he's gotten in trouble for it.
He should be. I don't know if he should. I'm guessing he got in trouble for it because he's like breaking a law of some sort, which I probably disagree with the law. But like those paintings were unique or novel 10 years ago, and mm-hmm. I've had to look at them once a week on social media for 10 years since, because people that aren't artists think they're amazing because mm-hmm. they have this comment. Like, that is like what this study is addressing. And I think there are valid takeaways. Like, that there is truth to that. Like, he's able to get his message seen by millions of people because he took a different approach than, like, I don't know, whatever. But there is something valid about that. I hate art with ideology mm-hmm. most of the time. And I feel like if someone not knowing me would probably think I would prefer art with the ideology. Mm-hmm. Right? But I want art to be about beauty.
Yeah.
Not thoughts or ideas. Or
there's the nature of art being subjective as it is. It's not to say that it discludes something from being objective, but I think we nailed it by saying doing so effectively. It's so rare that hits the bar of being effective and is, you know, it's more than just a political cartoon. You know, it's like something that you enjoy looking at, or something that you can really like see beauty in, that conveys a particular message, like a universal, or, you know, something that's meant to be communicated through this work, rather than, you know, it's, I think that's part of the reason I liked surrealism so much growing up, was the idea of like, oh, it doesn't have to be, like, it can still be bowls of fruit, and it can still be, you know, still life stuff. Cause that's what I enjoyed making, was like from reality, but it can be skewed and, you know, construed in different ways that is more fun to look at, more fun for the artist to make. And it's like,
oh man,
those are the things like that I think about with art.
You're making me feel hardcore right now. All right, you want the
hardcore?
I feel like a hardcore art snob right now. You want the
do it.
All the hard takes? Okay. Yeah. Surrealism fucking sucks. Okay. Now,
as a genre, or you're saying all of the paintings that all of the
every
representation
of piece of trash that was ever sorted at. No, I'm joking. Surreal, like we did a surrealist episode. Surrealism was my entry into loving art. Like, I adore a lot of Rene and whatever dumb old shit, because it makes you feel a way, and there's a sense of wonder or curiosity or something different when you're like a 10-year-old kid who's never seen anything but objective shit reality. It's something
you get fucking Van Gogh and fucking the Mona Lisa shoved down your throat, like this is art.
But
and you see your first Dali piece with the melting clocks and weird, you know, naked figures and stuff, and you're like, oh shit, what's this?
What the fuck's this place? Yeah, but as an adult now who has spent their life kind of adoring art, most surrealism sucks, because at best you get a feeling, at worst you get stupid shit. If we go back to the example of like, oh, it's a painting of a, like there's I like the beauty and the feelings from art, but often surrealism is like so masturbatory. It's like a subconscious reflection. There's like no defined feeling or idea. And like, but the idea, if it's overcooked, is bad, right? But if we go back to like the earlier example of like, it's a painting of you know, a SWAT team, whatever, crippling a young woman, and the painting's beautiful because of the look of defiance in her eye, right? But let's say the SWAT, it's like their guys are all wrapped in American flags, and in the reflection of her eye is the hammer and the sickle, right?
Yeah.
Or it's an obvious message of sorts. That ruins it, right? Like, I'm
agreed.
I am not. And if
I mean, that's the propaganda is what it is.
or like if it was so gorgeous still, like the feelings were so powerful, it would be because of, like you said, the universal subjective things we connect to, the feeling of it, the feeling of defiance in the face of a insurmountable obstacle, but not here's the ideology of capitalism versus communism, like that shit. Like the surrealism gets, I'm mostly joking, but most surrealism is like too cloudy minded or like non-direct in what the expectation of feeling is, and then like political art is too direct.
Yeah,
true beauty is most often going to be more nebulous or in between those poles. Am I making sense, or am I just like a very opinionated artist?
I believe you are, but also I'm fighting my cat right now, who desperately wants to be on my lap.
Is she beautiful?
She is.
Let her up. Fuck it.
She's beautiful and objective. She has an objective and she will succeed.
Dude, I'm at 2 COVID exposures in the last couple days. I'm waiting to see if I get sick right now.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, dude. 2025, bro. The fuck?
Out here with the masks and the Lysol wipes on all your groceries. Jesus. And remember wiping down the bags?
Oh my God. I never did that.
We all did that.
I didn't. Fuck that. I just stayed inside like I always do.
What did I just see that actually reminded me of this? That someone said something about the people who followed the lines in a grocery store, and it was like when during COVID when they had like taped, like the directional lines of like, hey, just go this way down this aisle so that we're not like
cringe
confronting and bumping into each other thing. And it was like, oh, that's actually I thought at the time it's like, okay, if the objective is to let people come in here and do their thing and with, the freedom of doing it, I think that's a great way of doing it, of creating queues. And honestly, every time I go to the grocery store and people are just completely without any sense of spatial awareness, I really wish we could go back to that.
Bro, what is happening right now? Like 4 years late, you got COVID commentary now? What is happening?
I mean, no, someone else brought it up and it made me think about it. And it was like, oh man, that was a good time.
All right, well, what about the art?
We should adopt that all the time.
Final thoughts. What do you got? I feel like you just like got laser pointered. Like your cat had a laser pointer.
Yeah. That's not entirely untrue. I feel like I'm trying to sum up things from this article that I haven't already kind of said.
I think the article and the study is trash, dude. Fuck this shit. I like
big if true. Just
I think we got some interesting stuff from it, but the study
honestly,
is a waste of fucking time.
Not even big if true. It's like not even.
Yeah, it's like subjective if
like,
true.
Okay, whatever. I guess I don't know what's practically useful with this information.
Still
I get
subjective
the idea.
if true to some.
Yeah.
Thanks, Psyorg. What the fuck?
This article's AI slap.
A little bit.
It's definitely not, but it's very interesting. I think the concept was.
It's an interesting concept.
Someone had an idea and they had some funding and they went with it.
I don't know what to take away from it. Like we've had lots of thoughts along the way. I think there's an element of like people are scared to see the real thing a lot of times. Yeah,
for sure. As someone who grew up going to like rotten.com, there are things that you don't think they're that big of a deal until you realize you can't unsee them. And it's not so much that it's terrible. To have seen it, it still sucks.
I regret watching the Christchurch shooting. That is like one of the only things I've regret watching online.
That's fair.
But I hate that they hide it. Okay, that's the conspiracy.
Yeah,
I don't like the amount of censorship though. But
interesting, and I'm not sure if they. Maybe this was just me, and it was never said.
You know what? I don't regret it. Because I'm supposed to feel that way, right?
You're supposed to feel like you regret it, or you're supposed to not regret it? What are you saying?
I think you are supposed to feel like you regret it, because The reality is like,
are you saying you don't regret it only because you think, you believe that you are supposed to regret it?
I don't know what you said. I don't regret it because you're supposed to feel that way. It is supposed to be, right? Like
yeah, you're supposed to feel like it sucks. But
yeah, but
also,
I didn't understand how bad it would be until I watched it.
Right.
And that has stuck with me since, and I think that is important.
I think you can consider it an important learning, life lesson that you gained from that.
Yeah.
But I think it's also fair to say, okay, maybe regret isn't the right word. Maybe it's like, you probably could have gotten through life without having seen that.
Yeah, but I think it affected me in a good way.
I think the idea of regret, maybe I can see that being a strong word in that sense of like, it's difficult to say that you don't regret bad things that happened to you because it led you to be in the place where you are now.
Well, I don't know what the right word would be, but all right, I don't know why that speaker just did that.
It's like the
as
example,
a person who glorifies violence often or romanticizes it, and felt the curiosity to watch a bunch of people die one day.
Mm-hmm.
And as upsetting as it is, like every now and again to randomly have to see, in your head, see shit that like hurts a little bit. I think it was good. I saw it. I think it'd be good if more people saw it.
There's the example that comes to mind in my head is like the catalyst that brought me to Michigan. Like probably the biggest acting catalyst that brought me up here was my grandparents dying. And that was like, I've caught myself being in the situation of realizing like, when I was still going through the grieving process, like, would I give up everything that I had here to have, my grandfather back? And that's a terrible spiral that you can't go into. But I think it's similar in the way of saying it's not that I don't regret that happening because look where I am, like look what I've, how I've grown through that pain and whatnot. But I think it still can be considered like, I wish that didn't happen to me because that sucked. I wish I didn't have to have had experienced that.
I do take your point, but I feel like with whether it's with the real video or photograph of something happening,
Mm-hmm.
and art, there isn't really space for regret because it is objective that it,
Mm-hmm.
it exists in a state or it didn't, and it.
Yeah, I think I'm getting into the semantics of the regret.
But I don't know why.
Because I went off on a tangent. That's why. Also, like I started to say
in a shitty way. I mean, like what is it you're trying to get at there? I don't mean it.
Oh, my point was saying that like, okay, the idea of like, I saw the Christchurch shooting video, and like to say that like I felt it made me react emotionally, and I feel like society makes me feel like I'm supposed to regret that. Or I feel like I regret it, but because of that, I'm going to choose to not feel that, or I'm not going to, now I'm glad I saw it. Versus, I think it's okay to feel like you wish that you hadn't experienced it while acknowledging what you gained from it. Yeah.
I mean, I would have to agree with that, but I almost feel like that is the surrealist argument of like, yeah, it would be cool if reality wasn't real and we could have it both ways. right?
Right. But
like,
I think the important part is acknowledging that it's not. Acknowledging that you did go through this, and that's, great, but like also saying that, it would be, I wish I didn't have to. I wish it didn't have to be in the way that it was.
I feel like the real question there would be is like, then I would also have to wish, you either have to, it could be both, but you either have to wish the world wasn't the way it was or you weren't the way you were. And
yeah,
we only have some control over one of those things.
And you only get 3 wishes. Now, I started saying this earlier, and I'm not sure if I just missed something through it, or if they actually, I could have swore they gendered the author of this study. It might have been just something I did on my own, and that was my fault.
I didn't pay attention.
Yagmar Ozbey is a woman. I feel like if I might have said multiple times that referred to them as he, and I wanted to.
That's because you're a sexist, okay?
Yep, I wanted to course correct on that.
Sure. I feel like maybe the negative, if anything, negative content should be embraced more. Delete that. How do we end this? What's our final note here?
Shout out to rotten.com.
No, I want something conclusion-y. Like, what is the something? I feel like we're missing a takeaway.
Yeah. I think we both agree that while this study is kind of interesting, I think we both are in the frame of how useful is this actually really? How helpful is this to anyone, I guess?
Here's what I think it is.
Yeah.
Thank you. You got me there. So much of this whole article goes back to like, how useful is the art? Like, what is the outcome we can engineer from our creative tools, right?
Yeah.
And I while there's plenty of room for that to be valid, or times that happens, I just don't want art to be about that. And I often just do not appreciate the art that is, and I wish things like this were not quantified. I think whether it's about the beauty or the feelings, I think that should be paramount to what is communicated directly.
Mm-hmm. I can second that.
Do you feel that way? You feel that way? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most people that like art probably feel similarly, and then non-art people probably don't. Or probably like see like more of a measurement for art to be measured through like its effect or its utility. Yeah, this is like very like utilitarian perspective on art.
There's a fun scale of people who don't make art or haven't studied art a whole lot, that have a glorification in their head of like, oh, art's for, it's fancy, and there's something like a little
that, or they don't value it at all.
Yeah. There's the both ways. And I think the sliding scale, like, as you have people that like study more about art and like, or make art, and like, it's seen as it's less of a big deal, I think, to a lot of people who make art as like, I do this thing, and it's like there's less of the picking it apart. There's some of that, but it's like there's some of that, but it's a lot of the aesthetics and the stuff like that, where it's like, I think this looks cool. I think this looks nice, or I want to make this thing because this is for me. Where it's not saying that feeling of glorification depreciates, but it's like not top of the mind. And then I feel like there is the next step above that is like someone challenges that of somebody, and then they immediately go to, if someone says, well, maybe art isn't a big deal, and it's like, you don't know shit. Like the artist saying, like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Art's really
means
important.
Everything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's I feel like it's a graph that goes up and then goes down and then goes back up again when,
Why would we even bomb Putin if we could just mail him a painting?
Yeah.
Art is everything.
Oh man, speaking of art, see the video of Trump licking Elon's toes?
Did you? Yeah. Did you see the Trump Gaza AI video?
Yeah.
Jesus
Christ.
That's a graven image of himself as a godly figure. That's a big sin.
It's cool, real cool shit. Awesome place we live in with great people.
Art's so important, I bet it could solve all of our problems. If everyone just felt
if everyone just went to a museum.
Who needs guns when you have a sketchbook?
Everyone, listen. March 21st. Everyone take off work, and everyone go to your museum. Everyone go to a museum and look at art.
We can't do crime drawings all over the streets till all the laws change.
Everything's paint. Yeah, spray paint art on. You put art on all of your local walls and businesses.
I always thought if I was a politician and they had one of those protests where they do chalk drawings everywhere, I would just be so happy. Like, what a relief. You guys are so fucking stupid. You think a chalk drawing is going to change me? Fuck you. I'd be so excited to have protesters that did chalk drawings.
Here's another thing I never said. I've never said if you're gonna spray paint a message onto something, if you use regular spray paint, it comes off easier than if you buy furniture appliance grade spray paint. Usually that's also heat resistant and waterproof.
Pretty much all.
But I've never said that, so
that doesn't hold up in court. You know that, Your Honor. I did not say.
I was just informing everyone that I've never said this before.
That is not how it works. I don't know. Fuck it. Art is like everything to me, and I also fully acknowledge how nearly worthless it is objectively. And I don't think it matters, because all that matters is how it feels to us. I think how we feel, what we feel, is truly more important than objective reality. Mm-hmm. And in that sense, art is invaluable, while also being objectively invaluable.
It's both subjectively and objectively invaluable.
Yeah.
It's Schrodinger's art.
I dig it. All right, fuck it. Fuck art.
Thanks again for listening, everyone.
Big stuff on the way. Yep, get us out of here.
Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
Thanks, John.
Make sure to check out the show page at Trashcast on Instagram for news and art from the show. Check out Facebook for the memes.
If you're super bored, you can check out my invaluable, take it how you want, art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZICX. A couple episodes. Honestly, we've been working pretty hard on a couple things coming up soon, and super appreciate the little mini spike of plays recently. I don't know if it's just haters or if you guys are just fucking rad. Appreciate you guys regardless. And yeah, any final words of wisdom?
It's all of Eric Kahn's NoFap homies coming for us.
Eric. Yeah, fuck
Fuck Eric Kahn. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
That's going to be all for us today. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash.